Let me hit record, do my thing. How is the program treating you? How are the meditations, the tea? How is
doing better? Thank you.
Wonderful. Tell me how.
Yeah. It's let's see, how would I phrase that? I look forward to having the tea and doing a little meditation.
Good.
So that's I know going in while I'm boiling the tea that I almost expect feeling better.
Good. How do you feel better? What are the things that
I'm less not that well, sometimes I was volatile, but I'm less reactive when something happens now. A little smoother in my own head. Accepting what's happening, and that's a nice change.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So that's for me. For me, that's an improvement.
It's an improvement for all of us. You are not alone in that. I guarantee you.
Yeah. Less volatile in my head and in my stomach. So that's reactive. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, less reactive.
Less reactive, whether it's emotionally or physically, or just physically myself, or even just being negative outwardly. Being
one of the ways that I describe that is that we're still reactive because we're human. We react to things. That's part of the journey. But we are the intensity of the reaction, the charge of the reaction goes from a level 10 to a level 1, right? We have the spectrum of how intensely we react.
Yeah.
And in the sort of theoretical ideal world, we should be able to notice, oh, this is bothering me.
Yes.
And then simply self-correct and move along with our day in such a way that we are able to not be caught up in it and have it overwhelm us. But what happens for most of us is that we don't notice it when it's a level 1. So we shove it down, and then it builds to a level 2, and then we shove it down, and then it builds and builds and builds, and eventually it explodes because we're human. We have limited capacity.
I just have the psychological term for instead of when we want to talk about or talk about something, we do it negatively.
Yeah.
People, I can't remember the psychological.
Pessimistic.
Huh?
Pessimistic?
Yeah, there's another one, but when we're negative on people, we shove it's a 2-word psychological thing. Yeah, when we put our emotions on other people instead of being honest, we're just being negative. Yeah, it's pessimistic, but I've got the term, but it'll come.
Sort of blaming people for what we're experiencing.
Yeah. And then being negative, people say, "What's the matter with you?" Nothing, and then you're just bitchy or whatever.
Yeah, they're in the Taoist model. We'll often talk about 3. They like Trinity, so that things are often broken into 3s, and you can have what is known as the saint or the warrior, which would be like the one who accepts everything, and the negative side of that would be the victim.
Yeah,
I am victim to everything. I accept everything in a negative sense, versus I'm allowing for things to be, and I'm saintly because I just allow the world to be. The warrior would be the rebel, the one who is out to change the world, to fight against everything, and you're bad and you have to change, and the situation is wrong and it's your fault, and I'm going to yell at you, I'm going to fight you, I'm going to do whatever it is to get you to change so that I'm comfortable. And those are sort of 2 ends of the spectrum, where in the middle it would be known as the alchemist, the one who is able to transform the poison into medicine or the water into wine, where you take the situation and you're able to kind of see both sides and harmonize that within yourself to be like, okay, I don't like this and they're not bad. I don't have to accept it, but I also don't have to change them. And there's an easier going part of our heart that is in that, because we are allowing for others to be, And we're also maintaining healthy boundaries because we aren't taking on what we shouldn't take on.
Yeah, and that's something that historically I've found very difficult to do.
Yeah.
You see, in my good Judeo-Christian upbringing,
Mm-hmm.
I figure that if I'm not worrying about it, somebody, I don't care about them.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the opposite in my mind is if I'm not worrying about them, I'm not caring about them.
Exactly.
If I push it aside, I'm saying, oh, I don't care what happens to them. And then I feel guilty.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm worrying, then I must be caring.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, and that's my switch.
That is a wonderful thing to be able to see about yourself, because then you can catch it and recognize that not worrying in your intellectual brain,
Yeah.
you know that not worrying is not the same as not caring.
Yes.
But in your emotional body, that's not what it feels like. So now
I'm afraid of saying, so what? You know,
Mm-hmm.
I'm afraid if I say so what, it's dismissive. But no, it isn't always. I mean, it can be in some terms, but I'm afraid of saying or feeling so what. So to counteract that, I feel guilty. I feel worried.
So
worried. My worry goes with concern. If I'm worried, I'm concerned. If I'm not worried, then I'm not concerned, and I don't care.
So the practice in that situation, like if we're to sort of deconstruct the steps that are there, mm-hmm. What you want to recognize is, okay, there is something happening to another person that they are suffering with, because you see them suffering, and hence you begin your process of reaction to that. You don't like to see them experiencing whatever it is that they're experiencing.
Yeah.
And so then there is the idea that, well, you care. First of all, the good part of it is that you actually care about the person, right? That's the positive. You're a kind person, you care about them. So you have some concern for their well-being. Yeah. Where the trigger comes in is the idea that I need to now behave in this one particular way to prove to them, to prove to the world, to prove to myself that I actually care.
Yeah.
And so the indulgence, the habituated pattern would be to go down the rabbit hole of worry.
Yes.
Because somehow that will make it better.
Yes.
Which, it doesn't. Yeah. Intellectually. So when we're in our calm state, we can recruit our intellectual brain to be like, okay, makes sense that worrying and actually caring are not the same thing.
You're right.
Right?
And it can also be selfish.
Yeah, it's often very selfish.
Because I'm saying, hey, I'm worrying now because what's going to happen to you is going to adversely affect me, and I'll be miserable because of this happened to you, and I don't want to be miserable, so don't do this.
Exactly, right? Yeah. So then what we do is when we catch that process unfolding,
yes,
we stop the mental chatter of the worry, and we come back to the physical body and say, okay, right now I'm experiencing rabbit hole number 1, which is worry.
Yes.
Right? Okay, so this is that pattern of mine, and we all have multiple of them, so that's okay. And we say, well, where is that in my body? When I don't let myself worry, where do I start to feel the tension build up in my body?
Yes.
Where do I feel the constriction build up? Where do I feel the charge build up? Usually it's somewhere on the center line of the body. Could be my head, could be my throat, could be my jaw, could be my chest, could be my abdomen.
Butterflies or...
Yeah, could be anywhere. And so what we do is we say no to the habituated pattern of worry, but then we correct the physical body. Mm-hmm. So if you were a smoker and you were trying to quit smoking and you feel the urge to smoke, that's the rabbit hole of smoking.
Yes.
You feel the urge to smoke because something is happening. You almost get in a car accident and you're stressed and you're like, I need a cigarette to calm down.
Yeah.
So what we do is we take the pause and be like, okay, I'm anxious. I want to calm down. Where is that anxiety in my body? Mm-hmm. Then I feel my feet on the ground. Then I feel the breath. And then I bring the breath to that part of my physical body where I'm physically experiencing that anxiety. And I try to correct the physical body with the breathing and my feet on the ground. And what happens is somehow that mental rabbit hole dissipates when we correct the physical body.
Mhm.
And it's not like if you do it once, it will never come back. It may
Yes.
come back in various forms for the rest of your life based on
Yes.
your nature.
Yes.
But it will get smaller and smaller, and you'll recognize it in the same way that you recognize a light switch on the wall. You miss it most of the time, but when you need it, it's there and you can identify it and know what it is, but you're not caught up in it.
Yeah. And that's this week, maybe maybe the last 10 days, it's kind of been a relief not to be as worrisome.
Good.
See, my MO is when I'm in a situation and something good happens, I'm not necessarily satisfied with what happened with the positive. I'm mostly just relieved. Geez, I'm sure glad that didn't turn out badly. On the opposite side, when something bad happens, I'm not just disappointed, I'm devastated.
Mm-hmm.
So the negative is a stronger emotion than the positive is. That's why when I do a household project or something, I don't want to start it, because I said the negative will outweigh the positive. If it turns out wrong, I'll be more angry than if it turns out right, I'll be happy.
Exactly.
Therefore, why should I even attempt doing it?
Makes sense.
And
right.
that's got been caught up in that a lot. So, in other words, it's not worth doing. I'll be kind of satisfied when it's done, but if it really craps out,
then
I'm
really upset.
Angry for a day or two or whatever.
Yeah.
It's not worth my time. So that's one of my big dragons.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So then that's what you lean into next, right? And
yeah.
And as you've noticed, like over the course of the month of doing this, it gets easier and easier to drop into that space and sort of
Yes.
come back into alignment. And so the practice, of course, you never stop doing, right? Just because this month-long program comes to an end, you want to continue doing the practices basically forever. I still do them and will do them for the rest of my life. It will just be a part of how I keep myself centered as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And, on one level, it's easy for me to bring it into my life because it's a job requirement for me to be present with people.
Yeah.
So I have to do it. Otherwise, I won't succeed at the work that I do. But realistically, it's just as much of a requirement for you as it is for me, because it's really a requirement of life.
Yeah.
When you interact with your daughters, when you interact with a friend, when you interact with your wife, when you interact with yourself,
mm-hmm.
you need that exact same presence.
Yeah.
And so for all of us, the journey really never ends, because we're just hoping to get ourselves more and more hardwired to slow down and listen to what's really there.
Mm-hmm.
And most importantly, what the practice does is every time we get triggered, it redirects us to be self-sufficient for resetting. We're not looking at the outside world to make us feel better.
Yes. Yeah.
We're looking at ourselves to make ourselves feel better. And that helps us to be much kinder to other people.
Yeah.
And it helps empower us to realize we really do have the capacity to self-regulate. And that's a great thing. It's like, okay, I don't need for you to change what you're doing for me to be happy.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Right. Yeah. And that's what I've been caught up with a lot.
Yeah.
And that's a selfish thing.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's narcissistic in the sense that, like,
and we think it's concern, but it's not.
Yeah, exactly. And of course you are, you have a lot of company in that realm, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of the whole idea of human life being suffering is that it's all of our attachments to the outside world needing to be a particular way, rather than realizing we are self-regulating beings. Not that when it's 100 degrees outside, you might be uncomfortable, or if it's minus 30, you'll be uncomfortable. Or if a project doesn't go well, you'll be frustrated.
Yeah.
Those external factors will be there, but we recognize this intrinsic capacity to self-regulate, and somehow it makes it all much more tolerable.
Yeah. I thought of the psychological word I was looking for, passive aggressive.
Yes.
That's
okay.
what
Passive aggressive. Yes.
I grew up with that. Our family was bad for that. Yeah, and I tried to get that away from my daughters in the family, but we're still guilty of it.
Of
That's
course.
hard to get rid of.
It is. One of the things you can do is, it will inevitably happen for all of us that will be a little passive aggressive. And so then we want to be able to catch it. And our emotions are like layers of an onion. I don't know if we talked about this before, but like the passive aggressive comment is the surface of the onion.
Yes.
Underneath that skin of the onion is the disappointment that causes the aggressive response.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So then what we want to see is like, okay, I was just passive aggressive. Yeah. Let me regulate my body a little bit, get my brain out of fight, flight, freeze, come back into center. And then I can ask myself, well, what was I reacting to?
Where's that coming from?
What was the hurt that was underneath that caused the aggressive behavior? Yeah. And then if I can find that, usually what that points us to is something that is tender, which is usually that we care about the other person or we care about something.
Yeah.
And so then the conversation can shift from being passive aggressive into, hey, sorry I reacted that way. Actually, that came out because I was worried about you because I really care. Mm-hmm. And that was me just reacting because I was uncomfortable with the fear that I had around caring about you.
Yeah. And I snapped.
And ultimately, it reminds me that I care about you. And so we're able to kind of shift the dynamic to remind the person, hey, sorry I was a jerk, but underneath it, it's really because I care and I recognize that. So I'm going to go deal with it myself. Yeah. And I'm sorry. And just so that you know, I care.
Yeah.
And those
sometimes it can come from the caring, but also sometimes it can come from the selfish part, the narcissistic part.
Yeah, well, I guess what I'm trying to say is the selfish part is the surface.
Yes, all right, yes.
And
get rid of that.
If we can drop below the surface, we can see that there's something in there that we're uncomfortable with.
Yeah.
And then we can lean into either the tenderness in us, the thing that we're uncomfortable with, which might be that we really care about the person and we're afraid for them.
Yeah.
Or that we have this historical patterning of, I need to make sure nothing bad happens to you so I don't feel bad about something bad happened to you.
Yeah.
Are there any parts in the meditation or the use of the teas or the oils that I can further help refine for you?
Yeah, I tried to look, last time we talked a couple of weeks ago, you were going to send me the part again about how the oil works, and I didn't find that. So if you can maybe shoot that back.
So a description of the oils.
Yeah.
Okay.
How to use the oil. Yeah. I haven't used it yet.
Got it. Okay. I will do that.
Good.
And, one of the nice things with the oils is because of the way scent works and how it associates with memory.
Yes.
Is if you drink the tea and you smell the oil every time, you can take the oil with you to places you can't always take the tea.
Ah, okay.
So then on spur of the moment, you can grab the bottle and just smell it, and it will tap you into that pattern of meditation so that you can recreate it very quickly.
Okay.
And the bottle, of course, is very tiny, so you can stick it in your pocket. And,
yes.
Right. So I'll send you an email with that information.
Yes.
Anything else?
No, I think I've covered. I've written a little bit, but I've written that down about the negative and how I react to the negative more to the positive than to the positive. And I think in my MO again is I almost expect the negative to happen, and that gets me, and that can get me passive aggressive too, and everything else, because I expect, hey, I'm not going to do this because I know this board is going to break. So I'm not even going to try to cut it. Yeah.
So the work in those cases is to be okay with the board breaking.
Yeah.
Right? Is to heal the discomfort with something not going well. And the way that we do that, it's like the same thing as if if my work was being in a hot room, if that was the trigger for me,
Mhm.
one of the steps that I would have to go through is to be in the hot room and
Yes.
then self-correct.
Mhm.
And so it's like you take on a project knowing that it could go wrong, and if it goes wrong, it will trigger you, and you're okay with the fact that you'll get triggered
Yes.
because you know that you'll be able to self-correct.
So you can live. You train yourself to live with the consequence, and
Yeah.
of course, many or most consequences are not life threatening.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that would be like the next phase of how to apply this
Yes.
going forward is you
Yeah.
take it away from the cushion and you begin to actually invite in
Yeah.
the things that are your triggers, that are the potential risks.
Because I'm a fatalist. I see the negative coming right at me like a train.
Mm-hmm. Another thing you can do is when you see the negative, that's one of the rabbit holes.
Mm-hmm.
Stop the thought pattern and then choose to also write out the positive.
Yeah.
You may not believe it, you may not feel it,
Mm-hmm.
but you make sure that both stories get equal airtime.
Okay. Yes.
Right? It's like because if you run the negative story, that turns into the negative story superhighway.
Yes.
What we want is to develop the story of the positive superhighway.
Yeah.
And so we have to be able to catch that and be like, okay, I'm running that story, the negative potential thing. I'm going to stop that. I'm going to intentionally now run the positive story.
Yeah. Even as I was younger, my parents, well, mothers mostly, and my sisters. I'm one of the babies of the family, not a six. They'd call me a worry wart, so it goes a
long ways back. Yeah.
Because everybody was doing things, and I'd worry about what was happening. Because as being being youngest for a long time, I didn't know what was happening. Said, "What are you doing? And what's going on?" And they said, "Stop worrying." I said, "I'm not worrying. I just want to know what's going on." But that kind of stuck. I was a worry wart. Yeah.
Yeah. So then the practice is really settling into can you find comfort in the not knowing, right? Can you find comfort in the...
And that's getting better. And that's been there for so long that
it'll take time.
Yeah, it'll take time to get rid of it. But I felt better. And I have a bit of a dragon or a ghost in the closet coming, because here in Canada we have a seasonal affective disorder with the darkness and the cold.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it affects everybody, and we do tend to hibernate in the winter out here.
Yes, yeah, I know.
because it does get. We only get about in December we get only about 7 hours of sunlight.
Yeah.
9 o'clock to about 3:30 in the day, and that
it's limited. And then it's also so cold, so you're not outside as much, even if it is
you
sunny.
Can't go outside as much, and yeah. I mean, you can ski, and you can ski and snowmobile and stuff like that. But when it's really cold, you really can't. So doctors say here, the doctors aren't being negative. They see the season coming, and they say people just get
the change. There's actually a meditation practice you can do that is good for seasonal affective disorder.
Okay.
So we can migrate you towards that type of practice, or include that as part of what you do.
Yes.
So you can experiment with.
I'm not saying I necessarily suffer from it, but we certainly all.
Yeah,
suffer.
Everybody does. Just it's the nature of the season.
Well, I don't know if you do in San Diego, but
no, we don't here. But up north, people do for sure.
Yes, right. Yes. Oregon, Washington. Well, Oregon, Washington have a different thing. They have the rainy thing.
Yeah.
Which Melanie, I don't know if she's mentioned it, but Melanie finds that tough too.
Yeah, it's gray. You don't get the sunshine. Yeah. Not as cold, but you just get less sun.
Yeah. The gray is
And,
so that's a big thing for us. I can live with that. And my wife and I always take off in winter anyway. We go to Mexico or Hawaii.
Good.
Yeah, both our different doctors said, get out.
Yeah.
That we
go
do.
Get some, yeah.
We joke with our daughters. We say, we're spending your inheritance again.
Perfect.
Cute little inside joke. Yeah.
With the the nature of the wording, being that it's particularly deep, that it comes from such a young age, in the language of Chinese medicine, when we're working with something that is at a constitutional level, the typical pattern is that you want to work with it for about 100 days, or about 3 months.
Okay.
To see it begin to shift at this deeper layer of self. So like right now you did a 1 month process and it's already having an impact. But there'll be parts of yourself that you realize it's different in your day-to-day flow, but the underlying nature is still there.
Okay.
Right? There's like, it's there. You can see it that it's there, but it doesn't run the show the same way, but it's still there. Right? And what happens when we stick with a practice like this for 100 days is that it begins to change that deeper layer nature so that it's just not there as much. So my suggestion to you would be to continue with this pretty wholeheartedly.
With the tea?
The tea, the oils, everything.
Yes. I wasn't looking at this as an end at all. Because I know the benefit now, and I need the benefit.
Yeah, we all do. We all do, definitely. And I think what you'll see is that at about the 3 month mark, you'll also see another layer of change unfolding. Okay. Just to kind of give you some perspective of the time frame, certain things, because they are so deep, we know that they take time. But the beautiful thing is that even at that, being something that is so deep from your early childhood, it's still changeable.
3 months from now, or 3 months from when I began this?
When you began.
Okay, so a couple months left. Does it matter with the spoon? Does it matter whether the spoon is full or 3/4 full? Or
no? What most people find is the more they use it, the less they need. Because it's really just a tool to help support you, and you're training that process inside yourself. And so as you develop the wiring inside of you, you need the external support less and less.
Okay. Is it physiologically, does it, what's the word I'm looking for? Does it build in your system?
Well, I mean, that's the thing. It's not like a drug in the sense that you build a tolerance. So, because if you build a tolerance, then you need more of it. So it's like, I'm stressed, I have a glass of wine. A month later, I need 2 glasses of wine. A month later, I need 3 glasses of wine, right? This has the opposite effect.
Okay.
Because you're involved in the practice, because you're doing the meditation, you're doing the work, you get better at it. So you need for external things to support you gets less and less.
Yes.
To where you can just grab the bottle of oils and smell them, and that will be enough.
That triggers
you can think of the tea.
Yes.
And that will be enough, because you're developing this relationship, and the image that I like to use is that the tea becomes like a friend. And we develop a relationship with it. And it's a positive relationship because it's an empowered relationship. We're not dependent on the tea. The tea is there to support us while we do our stuff. And so we can just think of that, and we can feel the support of the tea because we've done so much work ourselves. And in a way, the tea and the oils are kind of like training wheels on a bicycle.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
If
and you can kick them off after a while. Yeah.
Exactly. You still have to ride the bicycle because that's your life. But the tea and the oils can be there when the road is particularly bumpy. Or say you were riding a bike across a very narrow ledge and you knew that if you fell, it would be really, really bad. And so you might, even though you know how to ride the bicycle really well, you might say, this is particularly risky. I'm going to put the training wheels on just to hedge my bets right now.
For this event, yeah.
And, as I mentioned before, I still use the teas, but I might use them once a month.
Okay.
As just part of my regular practice to make sure I keep that process engaged.
At this point, again, does it have to be daily? Like I've missed a couple days this week.
I would try to use it daily for the 3 months.
Okay.
because of the nature of what you're trying to work with.
Yeah.
If you miss a day here or there, that's not,
Yeah.
if you're getting 4 out of 7 or 5 out of 7 days a week, it's probably okay.
Yes.
But I would stick with the practice, particularly the meditative part of
Yes.
it, daily for those 3 months, because I think you'll see an even deeper shift in how you perceive reality by sticking with it in that way.
When I have a quick moment, even in bed, instead of doing a complete meditation, I can do the breathing.
Yeah.
My stomach, and that's a nice trigger. Almost like, actually, okay, I should do some breathing, and it's almost like I say, okay, I've breathed. Now I could go to bed. Now I could go to sleep. So
Perfect.
that's a nice switch to have.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just like a little thing we can tap into.
Yeah. And again, like I said, in our yoga practice, we practice breathing too, and so on. So yeah. And
Good.
we've started yoga again, which is good. We were off for about 3 weeks, so that helped too.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm cutting into your time, aren't you?
Yeah, that's okay. I do have to run, but I will send you an email with some suggestions, and what I might
for the oil.
Yeah, for the oil, and then for stuff going forward as well.
Yeah. Does
what
it
I might suggest is
what we discussed? Does it give you an idea where I'm going?
Yeah, I mean, I think you understand the practice pretty well, and it's just a matter of the doing. And you've been very proactive in trying to look at what the patterns are and see it. So that makes the process so much easier because you're more actively involved, which is the whole point, right?
Good. I need the positive. Yeah. I need the feedback. Yeah.
Because ultimately you're doing all the work. The tea and the oils and the meditation just allow you to do it.
Okay, I see.
Right?
Yes.
They just create the environment where you're more likely to succeed. And then every once in a while, it's good to have some feedback to see where you're stuck at, or to help you kind of like continually refine it, which is what this 1 month process was.
Yes.
But you seem, from my perspective, you seem pretty clear in your focus, and you seem pretty clear in your understanding of the practice. And you don't seem to be lacking the discipline to continue the practice. So those 3 levels I feel pretty good about. And because of that, I would say that, maybe we want to touch in once a month or something to kind of just see where you're at and make sure we keep refining it. If something comes up in between where you feel like you could use a little bit more feedback, we can always randomly touch base. But my guess is you're in a good enough space that just continuing to do it for another month kind of on your own will be a very worthwhile experience for you. Rather than having to feel like you need to touch in with me, I think sort of taking those training wheels off, the part of me off for a month, and letting you really dive deep into just doing it and seeing where it takes you will be sort of the next layer of that independence process.
I understand. Yeah. I had a question. I missed it. Okay, good. No, that's fine.
So yeah, that's what I would suggest.
Do we, if I need to touch base, is it, I take your phone number, I phone you first?
Email me.
Email you, okay.
Yeah, just email me and then we can coordinate a time for call.
A time for doing this.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Okay. Good.
And what I would say is, maybe we just try to do a call once a month for a few months while you unravel deeper layers and kind of just keep that momentum going forward.
Final question. It's a family question.
Yeah.
Touching base once a month and so on. Is there a bit of a conflict of interest since my daughters are also involved with you, and things can intertwine perhaps?
No, you're not coming to me about stuff with them, and they're not coming to me about stuff with you.
Although it could happen.
Yeah, the interesting thing is that
I don't know if they have father issues.
It's not on the table.
And that's you don't have to answer that. Yeah. Right.
But the interesting thing is that my perspective is it ultimately is just about you. It's not about them. For them, it's just about them. It's not about you.
Yes.
So like, if the trigger for me is the ballpoint pen,
Yeah.
I need to figure out why the ballpoint pen triggers me, because the pen isn't doing anything.
Yeah.
The pen is just being a pen.
Yes.
And so you're going to continue to be you. And if you being you is a trigger for them,
Yes.
it's now the ball is in their court.
Okay.
And if them being them is a trigger for you, it's about you. It's not about them.
Although a lot of my worry involves them, because I worry, whether they're happy, and Melanie's further away, so I don't see or talk to her as much. Yeah.
But that's not her fault. That's
yes,
your stuff, right?
Yes, I understand.
So for me, there's never really a conflict of interest, because I'm always
it doesn't disturb you.
Not at all, because my goal is always to point you back to you.
Okay.
To point me back to me, because if I point you to them, or I point them to you, that's very disempowering. That means they have control over you for your worrying.
Yes.
Right? And that the goal within Taoism is really self-knowledge and independence.
Yes.
Not worrying about trying to change the outside world.
Okay. There could be times where they could intertwine, though, right?
Yeah.
The family could. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That doesn't concern you either.
Not in the slightest.
Okay. Good. That's refreshing. Okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to touch base on that.
Yeah. No, it's not an issue, because that's just not an issue. It doesn't.
And you remember when we first started this, I was concerned about that, because my
absolutely
Melanie was involved in it, and now Carolyn's involved in it. So
yes. No, it's really it's remarkable how much of the intertwined stuff fades away when we start to focus on ourselves.
Good. Yeah.
It just really ends up not being an issue.
Okay.
And
wonderful.
At least in my experience with people, it's really
Okay. Now I touch base with you in a month.
I will send you some information, so we figure out a way to coordinate that.
Okay.
And
how to coordinate the okay.
And also, I will send you the
for the oil,
the information for the oil, and then also to do some review and testimonials. To write up about, and kind of so we can just get some of that information out there, so people can know basically what your experience was with the tea.
Okay.
With the meditation.
Yes.
And working with me and connecting, and how to bring that into your life, right? Because that's really the goal, is for people to understand how the meditation is helpful, how the tea is helpful, and then how hopefully I'm helpful in connecting the dots to bring it into your life.
That's anonymous, right?
No.
Oh, it's not anonymous?
No.
Okay.
I mean, it can be, but it's not meant to be. It's meant to be sort of human to human. This is my experience. If you want to use initials versus your full name, that's totally okay.
Okay.
What's more interesting to share, in terms of testimonials, I don't believe it's necessary for us to expose our inner demons to the world.
Okay.
That's not
the.
Yeah. We all have them.
Yes.
And the details that yours is the ballpoint pen, and mine is the bottle of liniment, and somebody else's is the cup of water.
Yeah.
That part doesn't really matter so much.
So how is this working for us in general?
Yes. I deal with some degree of stress and anxiety.
Yes.
The details of what cause it and where it comes from and all that sort of stuff really aren't that important. But it's something I've dealt with for a long time. And this was my experience of working with these things and how it's helped me. That's really what people want to see, is like, oh, it helped me and it was practical. They don't need to see your life history.
Yes.
And that's like, most of us are happy to tell the world this helped me. And most of us are fairly hesitant to air our darkest secrets, if we will.
Yeah.
And it's not really relevant, actually, in the scheme of things.
Social media does that for us.
Yeah, for sure.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. So the more you can help people to understand what the experience was and how and why it was helpful, that's really the role of a testimonial.
Okay. I understand. And some of the things I mentioned today about how the breathing helps and how you look forward to the tea, all those things I can repeat, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Good. Can do that.
Wonderful. And you'll get some links for it, for where it goes and that sort of stuff. And we can always coordinate the details as well.
Okay. If happens that after a month or so I haven't heard from you or I haven't contacted you, who makes the first step?
I will contact you within.
You do? Okay.
Yeah, I'll contact you within a week or so. You'll have everything. I just have to coordinate a few details on my
I understand. Yes.
The system.
Give me all those details.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good.
Thank you so much, sir.
I've helped you a long time again.
That's okay. Thank you for doing this, taking this on and taking on the experience and really doing the work.
It's been good. In the dark sides of my being, so when I get to the negative side, I say, okay, this can't be that good. When's the shoe gonna fall? And I'm gonna crash, but I won't go there. Yeah, right.
Good.
But that's further back now. But I'm saying, come on, this can't be this good. But
it can.
It can. Yes.
Yes.
And I see it can, and I'll hang on to that. Yeah.
Good.
Thank you very much. You've been very kind.
Thank you very much, Marcel. I really appreciate you having done this. And I will
also, as a dad, thank you for your kindness towards my daughters too.
You're very welcome. It's really, I love this work.
Good. And
so I'm really happy to share it with people because it just brings more happiness and peace to our lives, and we could all use that.
Yeah. And as not to divulge too much, Melanie is thrilled working with you. She loves you to pieces.
Yeah, I love her too. She's great. So I'm really happy to be working with her as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your kindness. Be well.
Thank you. You too.
Have a nice September.
Okay. Thanks.
Bye.